Hello, this is a learning how to drive video for everyone. I spent the last 3 years, mostly during the pandemic, teaching thousands of people how to drive, which gave me some things that'll maybe help it easier for you to drive. Let's keep this in mind that the ultimate goal for you to become a smooth, safe, and efficient driver is what I tried to get across to everyone. And there's some things that I can maybe give you some insight into pass a road test or just to become a better driver. Uh, there's going to be some processes you're going to want to learn. I'm going to go through my processes and then you can develop your own processes. And just keep in mind that the ultimate goal is to become smooth, safe, and efficient. So, with that, we're just going to get started. I'm going to assume that you know all the basics of how to use the car, the climate control, the turn signal, that sort of thing. There's some things that, as a driving instructor, or I assume somebody that wants to test you, is going to test you is you're going to want to see it. And one is hand over hand steering. All right. And then there's a basic process for that. So if these are my hands on the steering wheel, and I'm going to go this way. So your lead hand is going to be this hand. So this hand goes up across like this. If it's the other way, go across like this. If you're really good at hand over hand steering, your hands never really go past here. Okay. And I've never seen an excellent driver that did not use hand over hand steering. That being said, you don't have to use it all the time, but keep in mind, I've never seen a great driver not use hand over hand steering. Right. And then the other thing that we're going to also talk about a little bit is anytime you go backwards with an instructor or taking a test, I would say you want to actually be looking backwards. All right, so keep that in mind. Those are two things that we're going to look for um, to be able to figure out how solid you are. So those are the kind of the basics. But now we're going to go more into the driving part, and we're going to talk about the first thing is high side driving. So high side driving is when you're looking farther down the road. So as you're looking down the road a lot farther than right in front, okay, you're going to start to see things that are going to help you be able to navigate through them sooner. Then you're going to be able to see things happen in front of you that you're going to have to figure out, okay, this is what's going to happen. I got to be ready for this. All right. For high side driving, the main things you're going to want to see is if it moves, you want to see it. All right, it's that simple. If it moves, you want to know what it is and where it is and where it's going. The second thing is if it's out of place. All right, and that goes for all safety checks that you're going to do. Is that if it moves or if it's out of place, you need to know it. All right, and then you need to navigate through that. The next thing you want to focus on, and this is high side driving, are colors. So the first color that you always want to be able to recognize is red. So red generally means you have to stop. All right, we don't want to miss anything where we have to stop. And as you use your high side driving, you're going to start to notice these things because we can't just focus on one thing like I'm only going to look for bicycles. All right, that's why we want to look for movement and colors. The second color is going to be yellow. So yellow means danger or you may have to do something. All right. And so yellow signs are going to be mainly lane ending, lane merging, arrows that tell you the road's going to move. All right. Things like that, danger, or you may have to do something. If you see orange, it means construction. All right. And if in, at least in Madison, I'm not sure about other states, you can figure out what your state has, but our signs for roads are green. So if you want to take a left at the next road and you can't find the road, you may want to start looking for a green sign. Sometimes road signs can be blue. All right. When you're coming up to an intersection, right, is you want to look for white and black signs. So one-way roads are going to be white and black, no turn on red, um, that sort of things, right? So when you're coming up to intersections, look for white and black signs. So that's our high side driving. Um, the uh, the next thing that we want to focus on are safety checks. Now, there's lots of different safety checks when you're driving. Basically, if your car is going to go left or right, you want to check your blind spot on either direction you're going. Right. So let's say we're gonna be tooling down the road and we're gonna do anything to the right. Let's say there's a car parked on the side of the road and we can't give them quite 3 feet and we're gonna drift over to the center a little bit. take a quick look over your blind spot before you move. Right, and this is where processes, and we're going to go into that, are going to come into play. And this is why it's really important to develop processes in driving. And I can say that everything in driving comes down to a process, and we're gonna talk about that just after this. The next thing I want to talk about are corners. All right, going around a left or a right turn. All right. So left turns are more dangerous because obviously you're going to be crossing across traffic, right? But right turns, I would say, are more difficult. And if you want to do it the correct way, which is what instructors want to see, or a tester, would be that um, when you take a right turn, and this is hard, is you have to look over your right blind spot before you actually make the turn. And you have to develop this into your process. Very few people do it. And I understand that we have mirrors now that show us lights there, that if there's something there. But if you want to do it correctly, every single right turn, you want to check your blind spot behind you, which makes it really difficult. All right. And so there's a couple different types of turns. You got turns with stop signs and you got turns without stop signs. And so you're going to have to develop your own process for each one. So take for example, if I'm going to make a right turn, all right, and there's a stop sign, you know what the stop bar looks like, the big white line. I'm just going to come up and I'm going to get to the curb when I get over there. I'm going to stop behind the stop bar. I'm going to look for pedestrians. All right. If there's no pedestrians, I want to make sure there's not somebody from the cross traffic side on my right making a left turn, because that's what the end of that stop bar is for cars to go around that on their left turns. All right. If that's all said and good, I'm going to creep up into my safe zone, which is when you make an imaginary line from the curb to the curb in front of you. That's how far forward you can pull up before you actually have to decide whether it's open or not. And so that just gives you a little bit better insight. And so you have to mix in there a blind spot check, which is right there. And that comes down to timing, right? Because if you do your blind spot check too soon, okay, then basically, um, if there's a car coming from this side and you have to wait, you have to redo it again. All right. And so, like I said, it all comes down to a process. The process for me in that situation is I want to get to the curb on a right turn. All right. If there's a bike lane there and you don't feel comfortable getting over the curb, get to the bike lane. All right. Make your legal stop, 1001, 1002, at least 2 seconds. Okay. Look for pedestrians while you're waiting. If there's no pedestrians, all right, make sure there's not somebody making a left turn. Then you can already kind of start your turn if you've checked your blind spot. So as you um, come up into your safe zone, check your blind spot, start going. If it's open, keep going and take off. And with all corners, once I take off around the corner, I'm going to start to speed up quickly. All right, not super fast, but quickly. I'm going to look in my rearview mirror to see if I missed anything or if anything followed me. All right. And so that's the way all corners are. Whenever you go around a corner, I generally check my rearview mirror to see if anything came in behind me or if I missed something. Because if I miss something, I still may be able to punch the gas pedal really hard. All right. And so that's a right turn. And that's kind of in a nutshell. Left turns, you just have to generally yield to oncoming traffic, which is fairly obvious. The the thing is, left and right turns have this in common is you have to look to see what you have to go around. Left turns are a little bit more difficult because we have to look for either something yellow, a cross traffic stop bar, or an island. Okay. So if you're making a left turn, you should generally look for something yellow to go around. If you're not going around something yellow, you might be driving in the wrong lane. With the right turn, looking for things we have to go around: bus lane, bike lane, parked car, that sort of thing. So both directions, that you have to mix that kind of in your process to see what you have to go around. Okay, and that's kind of the left and right turns. And now we get into the steering part. Remember, all cornering is um, you want to time everything so that you're stepping on the gas pedal at the right time, so that you can just let the wheel spin in your hand as you're going out. I don't know about electric cars if it works or not. I only talk about gas cars here. Right, and so you can let the wheel spin back. You just kind of let it slide through your palm and you can control it with the gas pedal. Remember, if you just turn the car all the way to the left or the right and you just step on the gas pedal, the car's going to want to go straight. The wheel should spin straight in a gas car. All right. And so now that we kind of have cornering, we can mix into some more difficult thing like a right on red. Okay, so you use all your processes for everything in the red on red, except for there's one more safety check, and that's the oncoming left turn lane. All right. And so keep in mind whenever we go and we do a corner, we want to take the closest lane that we possibly can. All right. The closest driving lane. And this is the situation red on red is if they're oncoming drivers making a left turn, they may have a green arrow while we have a red light. So you want to make sure they're going to, and if it's a 2 lane road we're going into, you want to make sure they're going to take their closest lane and you take your closest lane, or else there obviously could be something bad happen. Um, so then, I'm not going to go into some of the maneuvers for the test. I'm not sure what your states do, but there's hill parking, straight line backing up, and there's the Y turn or the 3 point turn. Honestly, I think you guys can figure that one out um, on your own. I'm more focusing on the driving. But all right, so now we're going to come up to some intersections. Um, and at least in Madison, there's many of these intersections with no stop signs for I'm talking about a cross intersection where they're crisscrossing. So there's no stop signs. It's called an uncontrolled intersection. Um, this is basically for the rest of your life, you have to figure out what every single intersection is and what your role is at that intersection before you get there if you want to be safe. Okay. And so it's your responsibility to recognize what type of intersection it is and then have your processes in place, which includes the safety checks at the right time um, to be a safe driver. Right? And so then this is probably one of the biggest processes here. It's come in slow, ready to stop, but if it's open, go. Okay. And that process works for uncontrolled intersections. Okay. Yield signs, cross traffic bike lanes, if you have them where they have the right of way, and entering a roundabout. So that one process, keep in mind that um, that that one process keeps you safe through all those four different situations that I just went into. And so come in slow, okay, ready to stop, which ready to stop generally means your foot is over the brake, not on it, but over it, okay? And then if it's open, you're looking your safety checks, left, right, go, right? And then um, that's basically right there is that's the process for that. Then now we're going to get into the next process I want to talk about is um, side mirror, blinker, blind spot, slide. Okay, so that process there is for lane changes, merging on a highway, pulling over to the curb and pulling out from the curb. So keep in mind, if you put on your blinker first and there's somebody there, they're going to freak out because they're going to think you're just going to move over. So you need to be checking all around you at all times. So with that process, I'm assuming that you're far enough along in your driving that you know generally what's around you. All right. And so that's why, let's say I'm going to merge onto the highway. You want to get up to speed, okay? Make sure that you're going to get close up to the speed limit because it's going to be really difficult to merge if you're not up to speed limit. Um, and then mirror, it looks good. Blinker, blind spot, slide, and then check your rearview mirror to make sure everything's good behind you. All right, same thing with pulling over the curb, pulling off from the curb. Okay. The Let's talk about the safe zone now. So there's two different safe zones that I work with. One we kind of went with already on our right turn. But so keep in mind that when you come up to pretty much any stop sign, right, or uh, mainly just a stop sign, but any intersection or a driveway or whatever, is that you need to come up and stop at a certain spot, which is where that big white line is. And then if you look, you still have like sometimes 5 feet, 10 feet, whatever, before the actual cross traffic road starts. That's the safe zone. And I already went through the process for that. But that is going to be one of the most important things forever in driving. And a lot of people don't use it. Okay, they don't get it. Remember, it's just come up into that safe zone. You don't have to stop a second time. If it's open, you just keep going. All right. And then the second safe zone is that middle area between islands. I call it safe zone number two. It's generally for left turns. all right? And you want to be able to angle your car and get it in there um, so that you're not blocking both roads. So the situation is it's a divided road with islands, okay? But in the middle of intersections, there's the area that's asphalt or concrete. And there's usually white lines going on each side. That's the safe zone. So it's a very important resource when you're driving is because sometimes just from the left is open, but the right has cars going across. Okay. And so then you can get across one side, get the car angled so you're in that safe zone. You're not blocking traffic either way. All right. So that's safe zone. I call it safe zone number two. Okay. Um, I went into roundabouts, kind of the process a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit more detail. I'm going to break it down to a beginning, a middle, and an end. Right. So with roundabouts, you just have to look at signs. Okay. It's either going to be on the pavement, it's going to be up above, okay, or very rarely it can be in the roundabout. Okay. And you have to figure out what all the lanes do. Okay. So that's just basically the beginning is you have to figure out what the lanes do and get into the proper lane. Okay. Then the middle has got a lot more things. Keep in mind the cars in the roundabout have the right of way. So there you're looking to make sure that there's no cars coming before you enter the roundabout. There's two things that are kind of difficult. One is that timing the roundabout. It's a yield sign generally, and so you're going to learn to develop a skill over time to be able to enter that roundabout without stopping. So that's going to take a little while. The second thing that takes a little while is that you're going to be steering to the right because the entrances usually go to the right and then looking to the left. All right. Now there's going to be a white line generally going around the outside of that roundabout. Okay, that's like this end of the safe zone right there. So you want to be able to come up to the end of that white line, but make sure it's safe before you enter there. So you always have to look to see if there are any cars. There's two lanes. Sometimes both lanes have to be open. All right. That you don't want to change lanes in a roundabout. Okay. The also sometimes roundabouts have like an outside lane where it just goes around the outside edge of the lane, but keep in mind that they still have kind of a middle part there. You may still have to enter the traffic. The end part is pretty basic. You have to look for signs because the one thing you have to look for is lane ends. Because a lot of times, if you have two lanes that are going to exit a roundabout, one of them is going to end, and you want to know which one is going to end, and then use the proper process for whatever that sign says. And the other thing is the turn signal. If I'm taking the road test, you're going to want to use the turn signal. If you're driving with an instructor, use the turn signal. The um, everyday life, it's not super important. Usually, people are going through there quickly enough that it doesn't matter. But if you want to be courteous, go ahead. Turn signal is totally fine. Um, so then highways, I went into highways just a little bit. The the main things are is just merging, and I kind of said that you have to get up to speed, look at the ramp that you're using. Okay, figure out if you have to take a corner, how fast you can take it. But in general, you want to get up to speed quickly and try to match the traffic because if you're going 40 and they're going 60, it's going to be a nightmare to merge. Okay, and then it's just a matter of doing it a bunch of times. Um, just read road signs. The two main road signs that you're going to have to look for, besides the big signs that just tell you what the directions do, they're yellow, and one is lane added, and one is merging lane. And so as you're going up your ramp, you're going to want to look to see what type of ramp you're going to have because if it's lane added, a lot less stressful. You're going to have just a lane added there, and then you can slide over whenever you're ready. But if it's a merging lane, your lane is going to end. It's the same thing when you're tooling down the highway and you see the intersection where the ramps are coming up. You want to also look for those signs to see if it's lane added or merging lane. There's two ways to deal with the merging lane if there's cars there. One is just move over to the left, which is kind of the generic way to do it. The other one is to just adjust your speed, slower or faster, and that way you can stay in the right lane. Keep in mind that when you're driving, the left lane is for faster traffic. So anywhere where there's two lanes, the left lane is going to be for faster traffic. The right lane is for slower traffic. I generally like to kind of challenge myself and adjust my speed, help people in. Remember, it's your responsibility to help people in. Okay? All right. So I'm going to look at my notes just to see what I covered. Make sure I didn't miss anything. You know, it seems like a lot right here, but so uh, anticipation, that's one thing I want to talk about. The you're going to want to start to learn to anticipate things in driving, anticipate cars turning, anticipate cars going straight past you and getting ready to go, anticipate lights turning, right? So anticipation is going to come in quite a bit. Keep that in mind. The knowing your role at every intersection before you get there. So if you're driving up to an intersection and let's say it's got lights and you're going to go straight, know which lanes go straight. Okay. If it's a red light, you know that you're going to come up and just stop. If it's a green light, know when you're going to go. And then mix in your safety checks and your processes. Remember, timing. Timing comes in is when you use your turn signal. Remember, you're communicating with everybody around you with that turn signal, behind you, left of you, in front of you, wherever. Okay. And so you can mistime it by just turning on the turn signal too soon. And then, so timing comes in with the turn signal. Timing comes in with cornering, right? Timing comes into entering roundabouts or entering intersections. And timing comes into, I think that's it. Blinkers, cornering, entering intersections, and um, so uh, where are we? I think that's pretty much most of everything. Let me just take a quick look. Keep in mind that these are just my little outlines. Don't take this as any sort of it's going to make you totally safe. You have to come up with your own stuff. Um, so feathering on the gas pedal or feathering on the brake. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. Um, One-way streets. You're going to have to read the road signs, look for cars facing the wrong way, or if you're facing all cars are facing at you instead of, I mean, that's about it. The stop bar will go all the way across the road. Signs on both sides facing you or not facing you. Um, I'm not going to go into parallel parking, but it is a process. Line the mirror up to the front driver's door handle, crank the wheel all the way left, back in. You'll figure out the time when to turn all the way back to the right, to the left, and then you'll figure that out. It's just a process. Um, I'll go into the lines on the road in a minute also. So the two things I want to talk about is the gas pedal and the brake pedal. We want to feather on or feather off. It's keep in mind that once you step on the gas pedal, you've engaged everything, the engine and the transmission. If you completely take your foot off the gas pedal, you just disengaged everything. So just imagine if I had a rubber band in my hand and I wound it up with a stick in the middle. All right, everything's all tight. That's you stepping on the gas pedal. All right. If you take your foot slowly off, it kind of just sort of unwinds and you maintain control. But if you take your foot completely off the gas, you're going to disengage the motor and the transmission. You're going to have steering issues all the time. Plus, it's going to be super duper uncomfortable. Just like with the brake pedal, you want to feather it on and then feather off. So you don't want to hit the brake and then just let your foot off fast because the brake fluid all goes out to all the wheels. And the more you shock the system, the more uncomfortable it is. So that's where you want to get smooth with your foot. Okay? A lot of times people have steering issues when they have trouble with their foot. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. Like I said, this is just an outline. This is not going to make you 100% safe. I certainly don't want to be responsible for um, anything that I'm not going to say that this is the perfect video. This is just from me teaching people how to drive for 3 years. These are the steps that I developed. Um, Also, my email, if you'd like to email me, Dave Yeager 2, the number 2 at gmail.com. So Dave Yeager, Yaeger, the number 2 at gmail.com. And you can always reach out to me. I'm more than willing to, if you want to pay for my flight out to teach you to drive, I will. So if you want to put me up for lodging and transportation, I'll be more than happy to go anywhere and teach anybody how to drive. So thank you.